Hello, Max here, and today I would like to read an excerpt from a lovely book called The Devil's Storybook. This is one of recently my most favorite storybooks, along with a beautiful manga Bible I was recently gifted with. These are some of my top favorites. This one actually I got from my parents a while back. I think my mom lent this book to me. But it's been one of my favorites as of late. I have the second one as well, and I'm going to read an excerpt. See if I can. This is my favorite story in both books. Probably tied with my second favorite story in here. Alright, it's story time. A palindrome. There was an artist once who was so kind and good and loving that everyone who knew him liked to say he was the best fellow in the world. But the pictures he painted struck a lot of people as being most remarkably evil, for they all showed blank-faced men and women hopping about with their clothes off, or chopping each other into little pieces, and in general behaving in ways unacceptable to decent society. In spite of this, the people who knew him, loving him as they did, were more than willing to accept and admire the artist's pictures. He was very skillful, after all, quite a master, and some of his friends, believing that there is good and evil in everyone, like to think that all the evil in the artist came out in his work, and left behind nothing but good in the man himself. Now, the devil knew about the artist's pictures and thought they were magnificent. Sometimes, in fact, he would come out of hell in the middle of the night for the sole purpose of hanging about in the studio admiring them. Wouldn't it be splendid, he would think to himself, if we had such a fellow for number one artist at home? And then he would go away shaking his head, for he knew, as well as he knew anything, that the artist was too good a man to end up at an easel in hell. The devil pondered this problem off and on for a long time, and after a few years he had an idea. The artist had completed 37 pieces. When he makes it to 40, said the devil to himself, I'll just go up there and steal them all, and hang them down here in my gallery. 40 is enough anyway, and then I'll steal all his canvas, paints, and brushes, and even his easel after, which will just sit back and see what happens. The artist didn't know. Excuse me. The artist didn't know the devil's plan, of course. He went on calmly with his work, creating pictures of unmatchable evil. And whenever he went out, little children would follow him and birds would perch on his shoulders, and people would say, "Here comes the artist. What a good fellow he is, in spite of his terrible pictures. Surely the best fellow in the world." It wasn't long, however, before the 40th picture was completed. And when that time came, the devil, true to his plan, sneaked out of hell and stole the whole kit and caboodle. He dropped the easel, brushes, and things in a dusty corner of his throne room, but he hung the pictures in his gallery, and they were a huge success, with streams of the damned and all manner of major and minor demons filing through every day to study them approvingly over a cup of punch. Up in the world, the artist, meanwhile, was baffled. Oh, darn you, page. There we go. But he was baffled by what had happened. He asked around his village, but no one knew anything at all about the disappearance of the pictures, and even less about the theft of the easel and the rest. The artist grew very worried, because he was a poor man who earned the money for his tools by digging holes, since no one ever bought his pictures, and he knew that he would have to dig holes for a very long time before he had enough money to begin again. "Lovely," said the devil, when word came to him in hell of the artist's distress. "Now we shall see what we shall see." And he sat back and smiled and waited. As day after day went by with no more pictures to work on and nothing to do but dig, the artist began to alter. He stopped smiling and chased little children away when they tried to follow him, and shooed the birds from his shoulders. He grew silent and ill-tempered, and even cast off from the friends who loved him. And when he walked scowling in the village, the people would move out of his way. I have a hat like that. It's one of my favorite hats. I have a crow feather in it. The people would move out of his way and say to each other, "Here comes the artist. What a terrible fellow he is after all, just like the pictures he used to paint." The devil was enormously pleased by these developments. His plan was working perfectly. "I'll have the fellow himself in the end, as well as his pictures," he said, and he sat back and smiled and waited some more. One day, however, as the artist was digging holes in the earth, he came to a rich layer of clay. He scooped out a large lump and put it aside. And when the day was over, he took it home to his studio. All night he worked with it, and when morning came, he had finished a little statue. Strange to say, however, the statue showed a mother bending over to touch a small child clinging to her skirts, and the mood of it was one of greatness and love, great goodness and love. This was the beginning of a new life for the artist. He modeled more and more small statues similar to the first, and people liked them so much that they sold every one, and he didn't need to dig anymore except when he needed more clay. Soon he could afford to work in stone, and as his fame spread, he was asked to carve fine marble statues, and these in time could be found in every great church and courtyard in the land. But the artist's ill temper grew worse and worse as his statues grew more and more loving. He became at last quite the opposite of what he had been before, and the people who had once been his friends, still believing there is good and evil in everyone, said it seemed as if all the good in the artist came out in his work and left behind nothing but evil in the man himself. The devil was hard put to understand what had gone wrong. On the one hand, he was well pleased with the kind of man the artist had become, but at the same time he was disgusted with the statues. "That fellow is as useless to me now as he was before, and I don't know what to do," he said with a gnash of his teeth. "So I will do the best thing, just forget all about him." And that's what the devil did. He forgot about the artist altogether and turned his attention to other things. As for the artist, nobody knows what became of him. His paintings are admired in hell to this day, and his statues are admired in heaven. But the man himself seems to have been lost somewhere in between. No matter. He's sure to have plenty of company. And that's the story. That's one of my favorite stories of all time. When I read that story this year, it greatly, I felt, just gonna have it, I guess, my art supplies over there. I'll just have it focused here. That story really speaks to me. I'm someone who does a lot of artwork, and a lot of my artwork is very dark, is very much vent pieces about emotions, about negative emotions and different things. And, negative by human standards. There is good and bad in everything. I do believe that personally. I believe even the most difficult of human aspects come with pros and cons. And that story really speaks to me. I thank you for listening, and I hope that it may be connected with someone else out there. And I hope that you have a good day, dear listener, and I will bid you adieu. Goodbye.